What a bully! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside, decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes! And Burnley leading the derby.
Knocks it quickly. Finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper!
Burnley won it to the end! That is magnificent! They deserve that!
On it by Paul Teller. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it! Hat-trick for Nathan Teller! Oh, he's on fire at the minute! 3-0 Burnley! It's Nathan Teller's day!
And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Comes up a shot.
Oh, the goal! Manuel Benson once more! That is top class! Burnley have done it! Fantastic! Claret deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome along to the latest episode of Turfcast Podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of our game against Brentford this weekend. Back at Turf Moor, obviously after a trip down to the London Stadium. First time we've been at home since the Bournemouth game. And to be fair, the last 2 games we have been playing better. I know some people don't like to talk about when we're playing better because we're still getting beat or throwing 2-goal leads away. But positive signs are there and we have been getting better. But as you can see, as always, we're joined by a Brentford fan, or an opposition fan, should I say. And this time it's Brentford fan Mike from the Ealing Road podcast. How you doing, mate?
All good, mate. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully a good game as well on Saturday. Before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody that, as always, this episode of Turfcast is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. The league season is entering the business end, and Green King Sport venues are showing every single televised Burnley game fixture over the running, with more than 900 sports pubs across the UK. It doesn't matter where you're based, you can catch every single minute of the action, and football is best enjoyed with your mates. So if you're not at the ground this month, get a text in the group chat and head to your local Green King Sports venue to catch the game. And also don't forget to download the Green King Sport app to enjoy exclusive competitions and discounts whenever there's a game on. Right, Mike, let's talk about Brentford in your season so far then. What are your thoughts on how it's gone? Because I look at the league table and you'll be able to tell me later on whether or not you're a little bit worried about the relegation battle, because your form's not been great. But I look at Brentford and I don't know, I kind of expected you to be a bit better, but I'm obviously without Toney. Just ignore that for a second, as long as you can still hear me. Without Toney at the start of the season, then potentially you would have expected to be in this position. But like I said, I expected you guys to be a little bit higher up in the league table.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty disastrous. I'm kind of at the point now where I'm really excited for the season to end. I don't want to put it all down to injuries, but our injury list has been extensive. And I think you make a good point about Ivan Toney being out. We knew it was going to be a struggle without him. But arguably, I think Rico Henry is more important to this Brentford side than the way we play. Losing him at Newcastle to a season-ending injury really just kick-started a kind of cacophony of injuries that just catapulted us down the table. Ethan Pinnock's been out for a while. Aaron Hickey's been gone. Jensen's been gone for a while. Brian Mbumo's been out since Brighton. Kevin Schade, who we signed for a record fee last summer, is been out for the rest of the season. We're hoping to get a few of those back post-March international break. But it's just been pretty grim, I think. And just that you mentioned in your intro, you started to play better. I think performance is a key when you're down at the bottom. And there was a moment sort of, I would say up until Christmas, we hadn't actually played badly apart from one game against Everton. But since then, the injuries have really started to take their toll. And there's been a few games, especially in our recent run, which I think we've won 3 times in 18 games or something ridiculous like that. We've dropped 28 points from winning positions, which is a league high, and more than our first 2 seasons in the Premier League combined in terms of dropping points from winning positions. So yeah, I'm definitely in the boat of can't wait for the season to end. I'm slightly worried about relegation, which I think we'll get onto. But yeah, it's going to be, for me, I think Saturday is massive for both clubs, but I'm sure we'll get onto it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking for, I put a comment, I said a comment, should I say, on last week's pre-game show, expecting us to get beat, and I did get a bit of criticism for it. But we've got what, 14 points out of 28 games. That's like 0.5 points a game. So I think you can understand the pessimism there. But are you disappointed that you've not pushed on, or did you kind of like expect the season to be this way, and then, like you said, you're just hoping for the season to be over and then to finish with your head above water and then kick on next season? Is that where you're at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, as in terms of where I thought we would be after last season, do you mean?
Yeah, would you have expected to have kicked on a little bit?
I mean, it's difficult because the Toney thing was kind of looming, and we knew that he was going to be out for so long. But I mean, finishing 9th and not far off Europe last season was a massive achievement. And I knew there was going to be a drop off. I didn't expect it to be this sharp. I feel like, especially now, I think there's a little bit of discomfort with Brentford fans in that one of our most important backroom staff is leaving at the end of the season. I don't know if you saw that Ornstein reported in The Athletic that he's going to Chelsea. And I think with the injuries that have happened this season and how it's affected a club like Brentford and how it's affected sort of teams in the lower half of the division, I think we're in a bit of a panic in that. Honestly, I think if David Moyes leaves West Ham in the summer, I think Thomas Frank would be in the running for that job. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the summer, which is a strange thought because he's been with the club for so long. I think he's sort of third in terms of managers at one club in the EFL at the moment. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to see where this is going to go. Matthew Benham's recently said that he's open to selling the club, which I think is probably a realization that with the new independent regulator coming in, the teams without a lot of money are going to be completely hamstrung, and that gap between the rest of the league and the top 6 is just going to become even bigger.
Even bigger, yeah.
Exactly. So it's difficult because we've made a good signing. We made a couple of signings, and this next season it's going to feel like we've got 6 new signings with the amount of players we've had, key players that we've had injured this season. So it's difficult to know what next season's going to look like. Hopefully we're still in the Premier League, but that remains to be seen. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of judge expectations at the moment.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, mate. I don't see how you go down. Like, yes, you've not been great, but the bottom 3 are the bottom 3, and I think it'll stay that way. The only way it'll change for me is if Forest get more points deducted, and that I don't think that helps us. I think that helps Luton. Obviously, we're recording this on Thursday, so we're obviously probably both happy that Luton threw away that 3-goal lead last night, because I was doing it for like a betting in-play service, and I was watching it and I was fuming at half time, but also bragging in a way because I tipped them. It's like a betting service, like I say. So I tipped them to win it. I think they were odds of 6. So I tipped them to win, and everyone in chat were like, no chance. They were 3-0 up at half time. So I've gone on Twitter, bragged about this tip, and then obviously it was. So
gone too early.
I've gone too early with it. But I'd rather jinx Luton than jinx anybody else. Nothing against Luton, but obviously they're the team above us. But I don't think we're still now. I think the gap's too much. And you said there, you said earlier, like, performances are key when you're down at the bottom. I mean, I'd probably argue against that because we're the team that is playing well or has played well in patches. There's been some stinkers in there. Obviously, Palace away, Arsenal at home, Brentford away. That were a stinker. But obviously, we've not really seen the benefit of these performances. Like, what are your performances like at the minute? Because your results aren't great, are they? So, what are your performances like these days? Just quickly getting your results up now. We lost 2-1 last time out. Yeah, sorry to do that. Well, last time out 2-1 against Arsenal. I mean, we can talk. We get smashed by Arsenal 5-0, like not only a few weeks ago. A 2-2 against Chelsea. Then obviously a 4-2 at West Ham. 1-0 at City. That's not bad. Your 4-1 at Liverpool. Good win at Wolves. Then another defeat against City. And then the last time you won was the 20th of January, which was a 3-2 win against Forest. Like, we've not won in 2024, so I'm sat here talking about form. But what are your performances like at the minute then? Because obviously the results aren't great, but what are the performances like?
It's funny because against the big teams, especially against Arsenal and the 2 times we played Man City, we've actually played quite well, which is encouraging. Yeah. I was watching the Arsenal game, and Havertz shouldn't have been on the pitch for the winner anyway, but I would have said that second half performance was that kind of gritty Brentford that we've become so accustomed to seeing in terms of getting a goal back or taking the lead and then defending that lead or the draw. So yeah, against those big teams, we've been all right. The West Ham game was a car crash, 2-0 down in the first 5 minutes. Morpay brings one back, and then it's just kind of the story of our season. We're just this Brentford side, and I don't want to criticise them too heavily because this Brentford side isn't the Brentford side that would start regularly without all the injuries that we've got. But this Brentford side, the current one, with the players coming in, we just cannot manage momentum in a game. There's been so many instances this season where a goal's gone in, the crowd's gone up, and we've conceded 2 in the space of 10. I'm thinking about Man United away, where we were 1-0 up the whole game. We lost 2-1 in the last 4 minutes of the game in stoppage time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Against Spurs, we were 1-0 up. They go to 3-1 up within 10 minutes in the second half. There's just against West Ham in the last over the last 5 games, it's just like they are terrible at managing momentum. And it's like once one goal goes in, you know that another's going to come. But I mean, performance-wise, Brentford fans are a very strange bunch. That they're very reactive. It's like we'll go to Wolves.
We all are these days.
We'll go to Wolves and win 2-0 and put out a real good performance, and then we'll get battered at home by Liverpool just because of a couple of individual mistakes, and then it's like the world's ending again. But I think Thomas Frank, he couldn't have done a better job with what he's been dealt this season in terms of injuries. You cannot account for that. Whether we should have signed some more players in January is up for debate, and that's not Frank's fault. But we signed Sergio Reguilon from Tottenham to be Rico Henry's immediate replacement. Yeah. We didn't decide to strengthen anywhere else. And since then, Ethan Pinnock and Ben Mee have both been hit with big injuries. So I think the performances have been there for the large part, but he, like I said, he's done the best with the hand that he's been dealt this season, I would say.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So I guess now the aim is just to stop up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. I think I'm not 100% convinced we can't go down. I think a win on Saturday would go a long way to securing the safety. But I mean, the thing is, this run of games from February, and it seems like it's going to go to the international break, has been absolutely brutal for us. We played Man City twice, Liverpool once, Arsenal. The run of games has been brutal, and I feel like the last run of games that we have post-international break is going to be season-defining for us. We got you on Saturday, and I think we play Fulham, Luton, Sheffield United at home as well. We got Bournemouth as well in there. We've got a lot of games where now it's starting to look like we can go into these games and pick up points. Whereas we were looking at the March and February running fixtures, and we were targeting specific games where we're thinking we might get a draw from that because we're not going to win against Man City or Liverpool or Arsenal or any of these teams. So I'm not fully convinced we're 100% safe, but a win on Saturday would be massive for confidence going into a 2-week international break.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Premier League table now, and you're currently in 15th on 26 points, and beneath you is Everton on 25 points. Then underneath them is Forest on 24. Then it's the relegation zone, Luton on 18, ourselves on 14. I know we're on 14 points, and I know how bad we are, but every time I look at the league table, it still annoys me. And then Sheffield United, rock bottom, because we're miles better than them. But you know what annoys me? We are miles better than them, but we're on the same amount of points. And that just shows how frustrating this season has been. Like we should have more points on the board. We should do. I do quickly, just because you mentioned there, you're not convinced you're gonna stay up. That I think you win on Saturday. You're on 29 points. Burnley don't get to 29 points, mate. So we ain't going to catch you.
Just worried about
You're
Luton.
currently on 26. Yeah, fair enough. But look, I think Luton throwing that 3-goal lead away yesterday. I think they've got Forest next door, so that's also massive. I think them throwing that 3-goal lead away yesterday. I think that psychologically, I think that'll ruin them. I think you'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the game yesterday, and if they were 3-0 up at half time, so it's like if they'd have seen that out and got 3 points, then I would have been shitting myself. Because that game against Forest, if they managed to pick up a win against them, then would be right in amongst it, which would be very worrying as a Brentford fan.
Yeah, fair enough. If you're watching on YouTube, as you can see, we have the YouTube VIP members, just the names of them just scrolling along the bottom, just as a way to say thank you. You can join the YouTube VIP membership. If you're watching this video on YouTube, there should be a little button underneath next to the subscribe. Well, you should have pressed that button already. But there's a button next to that says join. Press that, you can become a member. Failing that, there is now a link in the description to be able to join it. You'll get early release of the pre-game show and more features next season, but it's just a way of supporting the channel if you want to. Obviously, Ivan Toney is now back after his long ban for betting. Have you been impressed with his form since he's come back? Because Brentford's form hasn't really picked up, has it? Like, and Toney comes out and he's from the outside looking in. I see him say all these things and put all these things on social media. I think, why do Brentford fans put up with it? But you obviously put up with it because he's so good. I mean, you might not put up with it. You might yourself get very pissed off and think, I'm sick of him doing that. But he's going to score a goal on Saturday, so all's forgiven. But how's his? Because I think, if we play like we've played in the last 2 games, we can get something against you guys with the form that you're in. But I'm obviously worried about Ivan Toney because he's a brilliant footballer and a brilliant striker. So how's he been playing since he's come back?
Just before I get onto that, and I've been clearing this up on every opposition podcast that I've done. Brentford fans are very much, we love the player Ivan Toney. We do not like the man Ivan Toney. He's just come out and I've seen a Sky Sports promo this morning to see that he's done another interview. It's just like, how many of these is he going to do? And it makes a laughing stock of all the Brentford fans.
It does. It really
everyone from the outside looking in is thinking, why the hell do these fans like him so much? The bloke's trying to force a move to a bigger club. And don't get me wrong, right? I understand players have ambition, and he's good enough to play at one of these top clubs, and I know that, and I don't have a problem with him saying it. But just the nature of the band, the fact that we've stuck by him. And he, even in the interviews where he was saying, I just want to get back to play my football, but he missed out the part when it was get back to play my football at Brentford. And he was like, I'd love to play at one of these top clubs. So he does himself no favours with the fans. But like you said, it's hard to hate someone who is a very good footballer and scores goals for your teams and scored 20 goals in the Premier League last season. In terms of his performances since he's been back, he's got 3 in, I want to say 8 or 3 and 7. But his performance has been pretty underwhelming. I can't lie. Far from the striker that we saw sort of towards the back end of last season. Yeah. And I don't know if that's an indictment of the injuries that we've had. Maybe he's not got the kind of synchrony. And I mean, we have to remember that Brian Mbeumo, who's been out for so long, who he had such a successful partnership with last season, he hasn't got the chance to play with him since he's come back from the betting ban. So he's gelling with different players. He's had to kind of either play off Wissa, and Wissa is really good, by the way, and Neil Mope as well, who Brentford fans adore, but he's changing partnerships. He's had 8 months off. I don't think anyone really expected him to come back the same player. The fact that he scored 3 and 7 or 3 and 8 or whatever it is, I think is testament to how good he is. And there has been flashes. I don't know if you watched the Arsenal game, but that effort with his left foot on the half volley from almost the halfway line.
Well, yeah, I remember that.
Was just incredible. And like I don't say this like just because I've got a Brentford hat on. He could do it at one of the Champions League clubs and he would score a lot of goals. I've seen enough of him now to see that he is a cut above. And I didn't think he would come back and kind of be in blistering form like he was last season, but he has been pretty underwhelming. There's a few touches. First touch has kind of got away from him a few times. There's been times where he doesn't look up for it. But at the moment, I don't know if I can put too much of the blame on him just because the whole team isn't playing that great.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think it's difficult, especially with so long out as well, to come back and hit the ground running. It's going to take time to get match sharp and stuff like that. Are you resigned to losing him then in the summer? Do you think next year he'll be a player playing somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he didn't sign a contract extension. Of course, he didn't because he's trying to force this move. But he's going to get the big move. I think in terms of the clubs that would be after him, I think Chelsea might have pulled out. I don't know if it's rumours or not. I know Arsenal. He said before that he'd like to play for Arsenal. But
I think Arsenal's a good fit. I think Arsenal need a striker. He's a good striker. I do think Arsenal will be a good fit.
Yeah. No, I've got no qualms. We've already signed
someone. And he
someone.
doesn't have to move either, obviously, both down in London. So
exactly, yeah. And we've already signed someone to replace him, so he's as good as gone.
Fingers crossed it doesn't bag on Saturday. You've already referenced, though, injuries. I've just got your injury list up in front of me. So you've got De Silva, Henry, the legend that is Ben Mee, Aaron Hickey, Kevin Shade, am I pronouncing that right? Ethan Pinnock, Brian Mbeumo, obviously Reguilon and Christian Norgard as well. According to this, Reguilon and Norgard could be fit for Saturday, but the rest of them are completely ruled out. I mean, everyone's had a lot of injuries, but that does seem quite excessive. Saying that, there's a couple here with 10, because you've got 9 currently. There's a couple here with 10, a couple more with 9, but there's been a lot of injuries for everyone this year. But yeah, how have you been coping without? Because that pretty much Ben Mee goes into the first team, so does Pinnock. There's a lot of players there. Mbeumo obviously is a brilliant footballer. So yeah, how have you been coping with them, and why do you think you've got so many this year, as does everybody?
I mean, yeah, it's weird because it's weird that there's been kind of league-wide stretch of injuries for almost what seems like every club. But no, it's been tough. I mean, I would be all right if it was for injuries for kind of squad players, but the fact that Rico Henry went out, then Aaron Hickey, and then Sharda, and then De Silva, we're talking about players that would definitely be in the starting 11. And now Ethan Pinnock got injured against Wolves. He's been our best defender since we signed him. Ben Mee was quality last year, although, to be honest, I think that from what I've seen from Ben Mee this year, I'm not sure. He's definitely not as sharp as he was last year. A lot of Brentford fans saying they think that might be his luck, because we obviously gave him a contract extension, but I'm not sure if we're going to see him post the end of this season. He hasn't looked as assured. I think it might be harsh to say he's lost a bit of pace, because I don't think he had much to begin with. But
No, he didn't.
It's been really tough, and it's really weird that there's been so many injuries. And I think you can really see the kind of difference between the top six and the rest of the league, because the top six have got injuries as well, but they're still the top six, whereas the rest of the league are hamstrung by these injuries, and you can really see it in terms of their league position.
Yeah, I think we're struggling as well, but we don't have 9 out. Currently have 5, which is actually one of the lowest in the league. But obviously, you touched on Ben Mee there. I did want to specifically have a point just for Ben Mee, because obviously he was a legend at Burnley. He seems to have fit in well at Brentford. Obviously, he's spent a lot of. He didn't play against us earlier in the season. He's not playing against us now, so it just shows that he's had a few injuries. He's been out for a while. How do Brentford fans? What's their opinions on Ben Mee? I presume you all love him as a bloke, because there's literally nothing to not like about him unless you're a bitter Aston Villa fan. But other than that, he's a class defender, a class bloke. And he seems to fit in well. And I remember when you signed him, not you personally, but a lot of Brentford fans were a little bit underwhelmed. And we were saying that, look, he's a legend, he's class. But how's he done at Brentford since joining? And at the risk of repeating yourself, I know you've just said you feel like he's lost a little bit of something this year, but how's he got on?
I think Brentford fans love him. I mean, last season, his partnership with Ethan Pinnock was incredible. It was some of the defensive work in terms of goals conceded. I think last season we went on a crazy run where we score first and we didn't drop points over like 18 games. And that's massively down to Ben Mee. But I feel like when we signed him, I wasn't underwhelmed. Brentford we're renowned for making these kind of rogue signings from all of these different leagues, picking up players based on the data. And we do tend to bring in one player who is a good fit. We did it with Winston Reid when he was at West Ham. We've done it with Zanka this season. We did it with Ben Mee last season. I mean, Zanka's been there before Ben Mee, but in terms of bringing in like an experienced pro who's done it at Premier League level, Ben Mee was that guy. But what I was so impressed about him was, and I don't know if this is going to come off harsh to Burnley fans or the style of play under Sean Dyche, because we were thinking about it. It was like, how is Ben Mee going to fit into this system? But he can play. He really can play with his feet.
Yeah.
He'll pass out from the back. We've seen sides to him that I hadn't seen of Ben Mee in the Premier League yet. And I don't know, just this season, it's just, I think he's kind of been in and out with injuries. He had the red card against Aston Villa, which kind of set him back when he just got back from injury. So it's difficult. He's lost a bit of something, but it's no kind of indictment to him as a player. We adore him. We think he's great. And yeah, it was a shrewd signing, shrewd bit of business, especially last season, considering our league position and the fact that we were pushing for Europe and we had a great defence. He was a big part of that.
Yeah, Ben was the one that hurt the most when he left last year. Like, I expected Tarky to leave, I expected Poppy to leave, I expected Dwight McNeil to leave. Chris Wood had obviously already left. But I remember thinking to ourselves, Ben Mee and obviously another defender you've got, who I'll touch on in a minute, and Nathan Collins in the Championship will be a brilliant defensive partnership. They both left. Ben went to you, obviously Nathan went to Wolves and then ended up with you. But yeah, that brings me on nicely to Nathan Collins. Your thoughts on him? He only was here for a year. And he looked like he was going to be a good player, but then he'd always have a bit of a mistake in him, and which felt that maybe the Premier League's a little bit too early for him. But he's 2 years older now, should be 2 years wiser. How's he getting on at Brentford?
So we've talked about it on our podcast before. Nathan Collins is either really, really good or he's really, really bad, and there's no in between. The first average game that I saw him have was against Arsenal last week, when he had a bit of a shaky first half and kind of recovered in the second. But you're right, the individual mistakes, I'm thinking 2 against Wolves, another one against West Ham. There's just been so many individual errors from Nathan Collins. He just seems like once he does one, his confidence goes and there's another one coming. But in terms of when he's been good, there was a performance. We beat Chelsea 2-0 at Stamford Bridge this season, which we do every year. But he was so good. And he was so confident in bringing the ball out. He was a rock in the centre of defence. And it was a game where we were playing a low block. We were soaking up so much pressure. And it was so impressive to see someone that we'd signed for a record fee, I believe, stand up to the pressure of a Chelsea side that had spent £1 billion on attacking players over the summer. So I don't know where I am with him. Some Brentford fans have written him off. I think he's very young. I think he's got a lot of potential, but the individual errors. I think Thomas Frank rested him for a couple of games after he made a howler against Liverpool, and I think that did him a world of good because he's come back since and he's looked a little bit better. But like you say, there's always a mistake there, and it tends to lead to a goal when he makes it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a defender in this. Obviously, if he makes a mistake, they do tend to lead to goals. But it seems like you're saying the exact same things that Burnley fans were saying about him 2 years ago. He's good. He's got potential. Hopefully, he's not one of them players that doesn't realise his potential. But I quickly just Googled him then as you were talking, and I'm surprised to see he's still 22. So he is young, and he will get better. A defender's prime obviously tends to be sort of like late 20s, early 30s, really. So hopefully he does get better for his sake. But yeah, you're saying the exact same things that we said 2 years ago. Will be good. Has a lot of potential, but needs to realise it. My standout memory of Nathan Collins always on the final day of the season, we need to beat Newcastle to stay. We beat Newcastle. We stay up. A ball comes in. What does Nathan Collins do for no reason whatsoever? Just smacks it with his hand. Penalty Newcastle. We go 1-0 down early on. Like, cheers, Nathan. We're relegated now. You have a good time at Wolves, mate. Fuming, I were. That's my standout memory of him. But yeah, obviously, it's a Burnley podcast, and this is your first appearance on Turfcast, actually. So I do like to get opposition fans' opinions on the Clarets. Obviously, you've already referenced the Sean Dyche sort of era there. We played in a certain style. It worked for so long, but ultimately, like we fell out of the Premier League. We've tried to do things completely different, fully ripped the copybook up, started again, new manager, completely different ethos, completely different style, and now playing in a different way, which was fantastic last year in the Championship, but hasn't really translated into the Premier League this year. Like, what are your thoughts on Burnley and what they're trying to do and how they're trying to play football and obviously failing at the minute in terms of staying in the Premier League?
It's a tough one because I listened to a podcast on Burnley a couple of months ago and the general theme of the podcast was the theme of managers' reluctance to kind of change their playing style this year. And Vincent Kompany was highlighted as one of them who had obviously blitzed the Championship, playing really good football, but maybe in the Premier League hasn't shown that kind of adaptability to go from being very good attacking wise and playing free-flowing football and then maybe switching it up like someone like Thomas Frank does when he realises that we're playing against a good team. We'll go to a 5 at the back, we'll sit in a low block and we'll soak up the pressure and hit him on the counter. But it's difficult. I actually think that changing the style would probably be to Vincent Kompany's detriment, in that if he wants the players to buy into the way they're playing, they're going to have to stick it out and play the way they're going to play against every team. So, and when you look at Burnley's team on paper, I know Fofana's come to the spotlight only recently, but I was a big fan of Zeki Amdouni. I don't know how he's been getting on. When I saw him at the start of the season,
not very well, not very well, Zeki. Yeah, it's not. You can see there's a good player in there with Zeki. Like, you can see the touches, but the general consensus tends to be that he's not the player you need when you're down there in a battle. And he has recently been dropped, actually, because he just goes missing in his matches and he's not up for the battle. But in terms of an actual player, he's very technically gifted. And I'd probably say the same for Mike Trezor as well, who was fantastic in Belgium last year. Come here, it's not really translated. If we can keep hold of them two in the Championship next year, I think they'll both be absolutely fantastic. But I also think that they'll both probably they'll set the start higher and probably will want to leave. You mentioned Coley Oshaw there as well. Yeah, he's been fantastic. But any others that have stood out for you?
Trafford has stood out in a probably not a great way. It seems like every time I watch Burnley,
touchy subject, mate. Touchy subject.
Some sort of clanger. Yeah, talk to me about Trafford. Like, what's gone wrong there? Because there's been games where I've seen him make blinding saves, but there's been a lot of games where I'm thinking, watching it, saying, you've got to be doing better there.
Yeah, I just, similar to Nathan Collins in a way, like I just think it's too early for him. I think that one of the most frustrating things about Burnley's season this season has been James Trafford, because we have a very good goalkeeper sat on the bench in Muric, who was fantastic last year, apart from the first 10 games in the Championship. But then after that, he grew into the style, he grew into his position, and then he became probably one of our best players in the last 10, 15 games. Despite he did miss a couple through injury, but other than that, he was a staple of the team and he was fantastic. Like, he would play out from the back brilliantly. It became like a bit of a staple last year that we had him in the net, and Neil said Muric, and Teller running on the last shore of the defenders. So he would ping a long ball up, and we scored like 3 or 4 goals from it over the course of the season. Trafford can't do that. Trafford can't play in that way. So the most frustrating thing for Burnley fans is we have Muric on the bench, who's proven that he is good enough in this style, but hasn't been given the chance to prove that he's good enough in the Prem, to the point where a lot of fans sit there and they'll defend Kompany. They'll say, well, he's not playing because he's not good enough in the Prem. Kompany's obviously seen that in training. It's like, well, he hasn't been given the chance. Trafford, I stand by the fact that that he will be a good goalkeeper. And I still think he will be a very good goalkeeper and will play for England. But he's just not ready yet. And I just feel like the best thing would have been to loan him out, let Muric play this season, and next season start bringing him into the team. That's what I'd have done. I just think it's too early for him, if I'm honest, mate. But yeah, a lot of Burnley fans are frustrated with him, and a lot of Burnley fans have seen what you've seen. So it's interesting to hear you say that about his clangers, because he does tend to do one. Every 2 or 3 games, every 3 or 4 games, he'll do something silly, drop a clanger or concede like a goal. Even the goal that we conceded against West Ham, I didn't really highlight it in the full-time show because I feel like I'd slag him off every week. So sometimes I do reluctantly not say anything. But even the goal that West Ham scored later on, I feel like he should have done better with it. But yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that actually, mate, because a lot of Burnley fans have been frustrated with him.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's difficult. What, Sander Berger? How's he been? He always
misses
chances.
He's been one of the standout players. It's weird because he was brought in, and then I interviewed a couple of lads from the Sheffield United way and spoke to them about him, and they said you need to play him in like a 10 role. He's a midfielder that needs to be further forward, but a lot of people see his size and they think, oh, he's going to be a defensive mid. Company plays him in defensive mid, and at first, the first 10, 15 games, he was pretty poor in that position because it's not his position. Company tweaked it slightly, and he became more of an 8 rather than a 6. So he was playing in the box-to-box role. And since then, he's been fantastic. He's probably been... Well, he's been the best midfielder throughout the course of the season because Josh Brownhill's been pretty poor this season. But since Cullen's come in, he's probably been better. But he's allowed Sander to be more of the box-to-box, whereas Cullen's tied it up. So, yeah, I really do like Sander. And if he's in the Championship with us next season, and then again, I think he will be a brilliant player in that league. But again, he might set his sights on staying in the Prem. I think he stays personally, Sander.
Couple of questions. Do you think you will be at danger? Because we mentioned like quite a few good players there. If you do go down, are you worried that some of your players might be cherry picked, like Sander Berg, Koleosho, Fofana? Obviously, he was going back to Chelsea probably.
I mean, yeah, Fofana's obviously going to go back to Chelsea, so I've not really got an issue with that one. He's obviously only on loan. I mean, I put it this way. I've said this on the recent full-time show, but I think we are in a better position now with the players for next season than we were the last time we went down, because I've already referenced it, but the last time we went down, we had Nick Pope in net. We knew he'd be leaving. Ben Mee, obviously, we thought he might stay. Nathan Collins thought he might stay, but them two both left. Tarky also left. Dwight McNeil left. Chris Wood had just left. Val Vegos turned around and said, I ain't playing in Championship. So we are in a better position now for next season than what we were then, because we have players like your Koleoshos, like your Oda Bears, like your Sanders, even your Traffords. I think he'll finally next season become the keeper that we've all expected, simply because it's more his level. But yeah, I think we're in a better position. Obviously, if bids come in, it's the club model to sell. But I'm not sure, because of how bad we've been this season, I'm not sure how many players do get cherry picked, if I'm honest.
Do you think Company would stick around if you went down?
Put it this way, if he leaves now after we've stuck by him when he's been so gashed this season and made a lot of mistakes, like Company has made mistakes. I'm still Company in, for the record, but he has made a lot of mistakes this season and we've stuck by him. The fans have started to turn. I still think more fans are in rather than out, but the out shouts are getting a lot louder. But the board have stuck by him. All the owners have said positive things about him in the press. So if he then turns around and says, I'm off, and doesn't give us a chance to go back up with him, then yeah, I'll be fuming if he leaves me. I think he sticks around. I think he's here for the long haul. I think he references the project a lot, this Company, and I think he will be here next year to hopefully see us piss the Championship again.
I hope so, mate. I hope so.
Yeah, we'll get into predictions and stuff then. But before we do that, I just want to remind everybody that we have exciting news to bring you from Uphold, Burnley's sleeve sponsor for the 23-24 season and a supporter of Turfcast podcast. Uphold have now launched a limited edition Burnley Uphold card, giving fans to show their support home and away. The card is free and comes with a host of benefits, including the ability to spend in any currency anywhere in the world where MasterCard is accepted, with no foreign transaction fees, competitive exchange rates, and easy integration with Google or Apple Play. Get your card today at www.uphold.com/BurnleyFC. But that's not all. When fans use their card for the first time, Uphold will donate £5 to Burnley FC in the community, supporting the Burnley family both on and off the pitch. Numbers are limited, so again, visit www.uphold.com/BurnleyFC and get your card today. Terms and conditions apply. Both teams not in great form. You've won once in 2024. We haven't won in 2024. We should have done. we've had a few good performances in 2024, especially the last two. But we've also had a couple of stinkers. And one of the biggest stinkers of the season was against you at Brentford. I went to that and wow, it's probably one of my worst away days because it's a bit of a drive. It's not horrendous. It's not like it's Brighton or Southampton or Norwich, but it's a bit of a drive. And then it started raining halfway through the second half. And I parked, I can't remember the name of the school, you'll know it, but I parked at a school near the ground, but it wasn't that near. It was a 20-minute walk. So I was walking in the pissing rain, fuming that we'd just been battered. And I feel like your press really exposed us that day.
Yeah.
I think you scored definitely one goal when Sander lost it, actually, after I've just been waxing lyrical about him. But then that was earlier in the season when he wasn't really finding that role well. And I think it maybe even two. So I think your press really hurt us that day. But hopefully with the injuries, you're not pressing as well at the minute. And we can expose you. I am positive we can get something out of this. I don't think it'll be a win because we just won 3 games all season. It should have been 4 now. So I'm going to sit on the fence slightly and go 1-1. I think you score, but I was thinking this before about what you just said about Toney and the fact that you've just said he's not been playing well. I'm leaning more now towards a Burnley win, despite you clearly being the better side in the Premier League table, showing that. But I just think our performances recently will hopefully be able to give us something to build on, and then we can get the win. But I am going to sit on the fence slightly and say 1-1 because performances have been there, but we haven't had the ability to just get over the line. What about you, mate? What are you thinking in terms of predictions and stuff for this?
We talked about in our podcast, we were kind of debating whether it's a must win or a don't lose. I think at the moment, and in light of the Luton result yesterday, I think it's a don't lose.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's a must win for you.
I don't think it's a must win just yet, considering the fixtures we've got left in terms of having to play Luton and Sheffield United as well. I don't know. It's difficult. I want to go. I don't think we've got the greatest record at Burnley,
Obviously last time we got relegated and we still spanked you 4-0 that year, didn't we? But that was the only game that season where it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and even in the Championship, I remember going up there a couple of times and just it being a nothing performance. But I think in light of the first fixture, when I think that was one of our, if not our best performance of the season in terms of the way we controlled the game and scored 3 really good goals. I want to go 2-1 Brentford win. I think we're going to have Reguilón back. I'm hoping we're going to have Norgard back as well. I think it'll be too soon.
I do like him.
Yeah. I think it'll be too soon for Brian and Bumo, which is a shame. I think we'll see him after the international break. But I think Wissa, since he's kind of come back from AFCON, I think he scored 3 in his last 3. He's really good in the press. Hopefully he can combine well with Toney. I don't think it's a must win. I'd absolutely take a draw, but I think I'm leaning towards a 2-1 Brentford win. I'm hoping, just in light of the reverse fixture.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, obviously, that it isn't that for us. But I can understand the reasoning behind that. Like I said, the reverse fixture, it's not even our worst performance of the season. There's been some stinkers in there, but it was pretty bad for us. And to get a front row seat of that, because I actually moved at half time because I took my little boy, but I couldn't buy tickets together because of this new point system. And he's only 5, well, he's 6 now actually, and he doesn't have enough points because you can't build up enough points when you're 6. Unless you've been going since you were 1. So I had to buy a ticket separate for him. Then obviously I'm not going to stick him 5 rows back, am I? And leave him there when he's 5. So I was cramped in with him. So I spotted a seat at disabled end. So I'm like, listen, I said to Stuart, can I just sit there? Is that all right? So I had this perfect view right in corner and it was just horrendous. Having said that, Corley Osho, I remember rightly, had a chance at 1-0 or 2-0. Different game if he scores that, and he should have scored that. But that's the story of our season. It really, really is. That and some stinkers and good performances, but not just having quite enough to get over the line. We'll wrap it up there, mate. But before we do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, your podcast and YouTube channel and stuff, if they want to digest some Brentford content ahead of this weekend?
Yeah, just the Elam Road podcast on YouTube. Twitter is @the Elam Road. Instagram is Elam Road Pod. Can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, mate. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure. Good luck for the rest of the season, but of course, after Saturday.
Nice one, mate. Good luck for Saturday.
Cheers, mate.